Hey everybody, it's Mr. Hancock here, and today we're going to be talking about how to use Bandlab. And Bandlab is an amazing program that is used for music production. The best part about it is that it's totally free. So you don't need to buy anything, you don't need to install any special software even, it's all run on your internet browser like Google Chrome. So that makes it really easy and to use and simple to set up. It doesn't obviously do the same things as a professional program like Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton does, but it does a lot of those things, obviously for no cost. So it's a great way to start to get introduced into the world of music production. So let's go ahead and dive right in to the program. And again, I recommend using Google Chrome for this particular software program. The first thing you need to do is sign up for a Bandlab account. So if you haven't done that yet, you can go to bandlab.com and click on sign up, and then you just basically create an account just like you would in any other kind of online program here. Or you can use your Google login, Facebook. I already have a Facebook account, so I can go ahead and just jump right in here. And you'll see there's three different big menus at the top. There's feed, which kind of gives you some updates, shows you some trending topics and people to follow and projects to see that other people have been making across the world, because this is something that is an international program. And then you can go to this Explore tab, and it gives you, again, some more ways to connect with people, some more ways to explore into the explore the software and see what it can do. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in by clicking on our library tab. And the library is going to be where all of your projects are stored. So we're going to create a new project right now. Again, I would strongly recommend you use the browser version of this on a computer, like on a laptop or on a desktop computer. I would not recommend doing this on your phone. You can do it on your phone, but it's just way more intuitive if you do this on a computer. It's going to save you a lot of time and stress and anger from trying to figure out how to do all this stuff on your phone. So if at all possible, get onto even a Chromebook or any personal computer, a laptop, desktop computer to do this, to do these projects, because it's going to make your life a lot easier. All right, so now that you've set up an account, again, this is when we create a new project, it gives us 5 options for creating a new track. Okay, so we have lots of different instruments that we can choose from here, whether it's a piano or an electric keyboard or any kind of band or orchestral instrument, including guitars and drum sets and things like that. So if you want to create that kind of a sound, that's where you're going to start, and that's where most of your tracks are going to come from. The drum machine here is if you want to make any kind of percussion track or drum track, that's where you're going to do that. It's got a lot of great electronic and acoustic drum sounds on it. If you want to record yourself talking or singing using either the built-in mic on your computer or an external microphone that you've purchased, then you will use the voice mic option here. If you have a way of connecting your guitar to your computer, you can plug in your guitar here, and Bandlab has presets for lots of different effects modules and things like that to basically create an amplifier out of your computer and create different kinds of sounds that way. And similarly, for those of you that might play bass, you can plug in a bass to your computer using the right kind of cables and interfaces, and we'll talk about that in a different video. But again, you can use your computer and use Bandlab as a bass amp, which is really awesome. So again, most of our projects here are going to be using instruments and drum machines and a little bit of vocals, mics and stuff too. But in order for us to kind of just get the basics of Bandlab down, I want us to just start using some of the preset loops. So we're going to click on the loops button there. And now we have a couple different options here. We have on the right side here, loop packs and all loops. Now you can play all of these loop here, and it gives you some different options for different instrument combinations. If you kind of like the general feel and the general sound of the instruments here, you can click on these loop packs, and it'll open up all these different loops here. Once you click on one of them, it'll start playing it for you. And so forth. All right. So we can reset, just kind of go back to our defaults here by just clicking the reset button. And by now going to our all loops button, we have the ability to change the genre. So let's say we want to find something that's pop. So we just click on pop. And then we go down to our next menu here, which is instruments, and decide on what instrument we want to use. If we just want to have a piano pop loop, and a loop is just generally an instrumental or vocal, usually a short segment, like between 1 and 10 seconds, that will repeat over and over again. So by clicking on any of these, you can kind of hear the different options. Notice here at the bottom, it tells you the tempo, which is beat measured in BPM, which stands for beats per minute. 60 beats per minute would be one beat every second. 120 beats per minute would be 2 beats every second, and so forth. You can figure that out. And it also tells you what key that the progression is in. And if you're not sure about what keys mean at this point, don't worry about it. The main thing you want to understand is that we want to pick, if we're trying to put a bunch of loops together, we want to pick loops that generally fit into the same key. So that's going to be an important, quality to look for. All right, so now you know how to find these different loops. Again, you're going to want to choose the genre, and you're going to want to choose what instrument you're looking for. You can always just click on this reset button, and then you can kind of go back to the beginning. If you decide you're going to look for a rock drum sound, click on rock, click on drums, and then it gives you all these different options down here. And we can hide these once we've selected to find hundreds, if not thousands, of different loops in whatever style we are looking for. All right. So the nice thing about here, once we've kind of found some kind of sound that we're looking for, if we like it, we just click on it and drag it over to our arrange window here. And then it just shows up just like that. If we want to hide our loops menu, we just click on loops. And here it is. We want to drag it all the way over to the left-hand side. So it starts here on measure 1. You'll notice here on the arrange window that we have measure numbers that are listed right across here. So you can see this is a 2-measure loop because it lasts for the entirety of 2 measures right here. From, even though it's going to number 3, we're looking at, this is basically the end of measure 2. All right, if I want to extend this out longer, on the upper right-hand corner, there's a little loop icon. If I just click on that, little arrow shows up, and I can just drag this out. If I want to make it 8 bars long, I can just put it there. If I press my space bar, it starts playing like that. If I press my space bar again, it stops. And if I press enter or return, it goes back to the beginning. These are 2 shortcuts you will want to know and get familiar with right away. So space bar to stop and to play, and then return or enter to go back to the beginning. All right. Now, we have the ability on the bottom menus here to put in some lyrics or notes. If we want to make some notes about our project, write in some lyrics if we're going to be singing along, things like that. We can do that there. Again, I told you before, this is how we find our loops menu right here. If you want to add a collaborator, for instance, if you want to add your teacher or someone else that you want to work on this project with, you can invite collaborators right here. As long as you know their Bandlab username, which will be important for you to know. Once you log in for the first time, it'll prompt you to set up a username in Bandlab. And once you know your collaborator's username, you can add them on. They can work on the project along with you. So that makes it a lot of fun to do that. And then if you have any external MIDI gear, let's say you have a keyboard or a MIDI, maybe an electric drum set, that you'd like to wire into this and be able to control some of these things. The most commonly used is a piano keyboard. But there's lots of different kinds of MIDI controllers that you can map into Bandlab and be able to control the software that way. So if you have that, this is where you map them to all the different parameters within Bandlab. All right, so yeah, that's how we, these are the bottom menus here. All right, so starting from scratch here, we can label our new project by just clicking up here at the title. I'll title this song, but you can make that whatever you want, of course. And I don't really want to have this drum track anymore. All right, so I'm gonna add a new track in here. And let's say I want to have a piano part in here. So I'm gonna click on instrument. By the way, I'm gonna delete this track by clicking on these three dots. So let me just mention the track menu here while I'm here. You can rename your track. Let's say you want your drums here. We can rename it right here. If you want to change your track color, to organize your tracks into track groupings, let's say you want all your vocal tracks a certain color, you want all of your drum tracks a certain color, you can do that here. There's lots of presets for effects, adding reverbs and delays and lots of different things we'll talk about later. Enabling multi-track recording, that's being able to record onto multiple tracks all at the same time, which we'll talk about later. If we want to organize our track listing, obviously we've only got 2 tracks right now, but if you want to move this up or down, you can do that here. If you want to duplicate a track, let's say you want to, the same settings, you just want to record another piano track on top of the piano track you've already made, you can duplicate that here. Or you can delete the track, which is what I'm going to do now. The last thing I want to mention is importing, and that's if you've exported one of these tracks already and you want to bring it into a new project, things like that, you can do that here. But I'm going to delete my original drum track because I just want to focus on my piano right now. So now I've got a piano track here, and when I click on the piano itself, it brings up this keyboard, and I can just click on the little buttons right here. But you notice they're also tied in and mapped already to my QWERTY keyboard. QWERTY is just the keyboard that's on my computer, right? So if I play, I'm playing actually the Z button on my computer, C, B, and so on. Okay, and I can just move all around here and so forth. And I can even play multiple notes at the same time. It's sounding kind of low right now. If I want to make that higher, I just move the octave up right here. Now it sounds higher. All right, that's all done on my piano, or not on my piano, on my QWERTY keyboard on my computer itself. So it's really easy to input notes onto new projects. So once you have got your instrument selected, now we are going to want to record, right? So right now you want to take a look at your transport bar, which is this whole section at the top here. All right. First thing you got to note is we got a metronome right here. And this metronome is going to be synced to whatever tempo you have set right here. Remember, we talked about beats per minute before. This one is 120 beats per minute. So that means there's going to be 2 beats every single second. So by clicking this metronome button, when I start recording, you can see those clicks right there. Bum, 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 bum. That's going to give me a nice set beat so that when I'm playing my song, I can have that kind of tempo to sync up my notes to. So when I press this red record button right here, let's go ahead and put some notes in now. All right, and you'll notice that when I played all these notes here, you'll see them all in these little lines that are, it's actually MIDI information. We're going to get to the details of what MIDI is right here. And these are all the notes that I played. Okay, you can see the piano keyboard on the left here. All I did was double click on my track region right here. Right, and now I've got all my notes right here. If I played a wrong note or something sounded wrong, I can just click on the note and delete it. I can move them around, and notice as I move them around, it actually plays the note, so I know what I'm going back to. You can drag them if I want them at a different time. Just move them left to right. Right, so when I play this, my metronome's going, you can also hear everything that I recorded. All right, pretty easy, right? All right, if you want to turn your metronome off, you can, of course, do that right there by just clicking on the metronome button. All right. One thing about bringing in loops, because that's going to be important for you to understand. And once you kind of get loops down, everything else kind of makes sense. I bring in a track here. You can, of course, make it not just make it loop longer, which will take it all the way here, but you can also make it shorter, okay? And then by making this loop region shorter, you can then extend the loop even farther by just looping the first half or the first segment of that region. All right, you can, of course, do it from the left side as well. So lots of different options there. So what I was doing there is you could hear the drum loop playing at the same time as my piano, my horrible piano part that I just recorded. All right, you have volume control here. So if you want one part to be louder, if I couldn't hear the drums quite as well, I could bring my piano a little softer, make my drums a little louder. And there we go. All right, so now kind of showing you the basics of how to put a new track, new instrument, combining that with loops on here and adjusting volume control. All right, another thing that you need to be aware of is cycle mode. And that is this icon right here underneath your edit menu. This will open up cycle mode. And you can also enable this by just clicking up here in this little bar. And by every region that turns red, it's going to loop over and over again. It's going to make it into a cycle. So once we get to the end of it, it'll go right back to the beginning. Got it there. All right, so that cycle mode is helpful when you are auditioning new material, if you create a line and you want to see how it kind of works in different ways. So cycle mode is a really good thing to kind of get comfortable with. All right. Another thing that's the button next to cycle mode is going to be my split at playhead. And that's going to be an important tool for you when you start to get into editing your tracks. Let's say I liked the beginning part that I did here, but I didn't like the second half of this. So of course I can just, you know, kind of reduce my region that way. But another way to do it is to split at playhead. And so now I've got two separate regions. If I want to make this one go out here. And when you're working with loops, this is really, really handy to be able to split at playhead. There's also your undo, by the way, your Command Z or Control Z, you can undo if you make a mistake. That happens all the time. You can also use your undo command right here and your redo command. If you undid something but you actually want to put it back, you can go to redo and using the same commands you would for any other program. Command Z is undo. I think Command Y is redo. Nope, not in Chrome. Just kidding. So anyway, the same commands for cut and paste, Command C or Control C, Command V for paste or Control V, and Command X or Control X to cut. All right, so if you want to move regions around, let's say you want this, I'm gonna undo my loop here, make this a little shorter. And let's say I want to put this drum loop another place in the song. Of course, I could copy and paste, but that's a little little bit of a longer process than just going Option or Alt and dragging with your mouse. So this will duplicate that region and put it somewhere else. All right. So a lot of the same commands that you would use in Word or in Google Docs are going to apply to Bandlab, which is really, really awesome. All right. Some more transport controls here. You know, we obviously have a go back to the beginning of your project and go to the end of your project using these buttons here. All right. You can navigate through your project by using the arrow keys. It's kind of nice. Sometimes you just want to get to a certain part, but you don't want to worry about using your mouse too much. The mouse can sometimes inhibit your workflow. So I would encourage you to get familiar with as many of the keyboard shortcuts as you can. That will help you move quickly through the software here. All right. All right, so now we've got a couple tracks on here. There's a couple other buttons that you need to know. Let's say you just want to hear your drums. You don't want to hear that keyboard part. So if I go to here and I want to solo, the M and S stand for mute and solo. So if I want to solo my drum track, just click on S. Now I'm playing my whole project, but only the drum track is soloed. So I'm not hearing anything else. The same task could be accomplished by just muting the piano. There you go. All right, now when we're dealing with 15 or 20 tracks, obviously the mute and solo buttons will be a lot more powerful for you to really identify you know, kind of everything that's happening and be able to edit your project a little bit more efficiently. All right, the other thing that I want to point out to you, which is this little knob right here. This is a pan control, and you can see there's an L and an R. Just like in your car stereo, you can move the sound from your right side of your speakers to your left side. We can do the same thing here, and that process in music production is called panning. So I'm going to take my keyboard, and just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to move that hard pan to the right and take my drums and move a hard pan to the left. Oops, still muted here. Okay. So if you were hearing this on your headphones, you would be able to hear that just the piano is coming out of the right side and just your drums is coming out of your left side. So that gives you a little more isolation. And when you're working again with multiple tracks, you want to get really good at panning your instruments into different sides of the stereo spectrum so that it allows your recording to be a little bit cleaner. All right. So outside of this stuff, once you click on an instrument track, you can see down here at the bottom, we've got a lot of different options, not just the MIDI information, where we can actually go in here and draw notes with our pencil tool right here. By just using the arrow tool, it just kind of lets you move things around. But by using the pencil tool, we can actually draw in notes. So you don't really need to be that great at playing the piano. You can just kind of draw in notes where you want them to be. You can make them long or short. Of course, this is not going to sound good because I'm drawing notes at random, but you get the idea. All right. That's beautiful. All right. So you can move things up by half step. You can move things up by octave or down by octave right here. This V control is a velocity control. That's basically your volume. So velocity is an important word for you to know in music production, because that's the word that music producers will use for volume. So your velocity control, if I want to make a certain you know, certain note softer or louder, we can just click on the note and drag. All right. Couple other things. We'll talk about quantization later. I don't want to deal with that quite yet. Putting effects into your sound. All right. Now, effects are different ways that we can just kind of tweak the sound to make it a little more unique. So it doesn't just sound like a regular piano. So by adding delay on here, it's hard to hear right now because it's such a messy piano part, but it kind of creates like an echo feel. If we want to add another effect on there, we can maybe do like a reverb, which would make it sound like it's in a big hall. So we've got delay and reverb on there on a really messy piano track. So not the best example, but this is how to introduce effects. If you know a thing or two about effects, you can start to jump into that. We're not going to deal with effects for several weeks, but that's just one way you can deal with that. Okay, and then again, getting back to our main instrument window here, we can change our octave to make it higher or lower. We can add sustain and things like that. So lots of different options for you to mess around with. All right, again, we can, once we have our instruments set, we can put our labels on here, which is going to be helpful. All right. Now, once we have a completed project, let's say you've got all the tracks you want, everything sounds perfect to you. Now, how do we get it off of Bandlab? That's a very important thing. We call this bouncing or exporting in most software programs. So for this, the way it does in Bandlab, there's a couple different ways to do it. Of course, you want to save your project, and if you want to publish it, you can as well. That will enable other people from around the world to view your project and see what you're doing. But if you just want to download the project, you can either do it track by track, and so that will create stems, what we call stems in music production, which are individual track recordings. So you get one stem of just the piano part, one stem of just the drums part, one stem of the bass part, one stem of the guitar part, etc. All right, but if you want to get your whole project all complete, we're going to call that a mixdown. All right, and we're going to download the mixdown, and you can, it'll save it. And then after it's done saving your project, it's going to prompt you for, for where you want to download the project to. And this will enable you to share it. You can put it in your iTunes. You can, export it to your phones. So you have the track with you. Of course, you can put it on, any file sharing website. So let's just say medium quality MP3 for now. And so it automatically downloads into my Google Chrome downloads folder. And now it shows up in my iTunes. You probably can't see this, but it's playing through my iTunes right now. And so that's how you do it. Pretty easy. All right. So that's kind of the basics of Bandlab right now. Certainly a lot of information to throw at you for day one. We're going to, it seems overwhelming probably to you right now, but give it some time. In the next 6 weeks or so, you're going to be practicing with this all the time, and you're going to get really used to making music projects in here, and it's going to become like second nature, probably like Google Docs is to you right now. You're going to know Bandlab the same way. So yeah, that's Bandlab in a nutshell. Now let's get into creating some projects. All right.